In this video, we will do a lab tour for our vSphere replication lab, and we will also look at the user interface for vSphere replication. First is the lab tour, and along with the lab tour, while we are doing the lab tour, we will also be looking at the user interface that's available for vSphere replication appliance so that you're familiar with this topic. Going forward, we will be setting up replication between multiple appliances and multiple sites. As you can see, I'm now logged in into my VMware vSphere web client. I'm on my vCenter server 192.168.0.220, which is my home vCenter, or if you're thinking in terms of companies, this would be the headquarters vCenter. What I want to do is to take you through the infrastructure that we have set up for our replication labs. So I would like you to think in terms of headquarters or the home office where I'm running vCenter 220, and when I look at the vCenter servers that are there, you see that I actually have two vCenters running in linked mode. So I have my vCenter 192.168.0.220, which is my primary vCenter, and it's running at headquarters, and I'm running in linked mode with 192.168.0.221, which is at a branch site. Now I have another branch site that is also set up, so in all I have two branch sites. This branch site is running a different vCenter, and that vCenter is 192.168.0.223. So the way to look at the infrastructure is this. I have one vCenter 220, which is running at the home office or headquarters. I have two branch offices. One branch office is 223, which we are looking at right now, and the other branch office is 221, which is running in linked mode with headquarters. This vCenter 223 is not running in linked mode. It is running by itself. It has its own embedded platform services controller in it. So we're now at the branch site, site 3.local, as you can see from here. What I want to do is to take a look at what the replication situation is right now at this branch office. So I go to home and I go to vSphere replication, and for this vCenter, it's looking up the information related to vSphere replication. And as you can see, it says it's enabled and OK. So what does this actually mean? Now, we're not going to go in depth into all the options and the actual processes that one would invoke through the user interface, such as setting up replications and then recovering from replications and so on. The intent of this section, or rather of this video, is to just be sure that you are familiar with the overall environment that I have in place, because we will in later videos actually go through each and every individual process. So this is an overview of the infrastructure that we have in place and an overview of the user interface for replication, what it looks like when replication is already installed, which is what I have here at this point in time. So the best way that I have seen, and that I actually like, which I think is probably efficient as well, is to actually work through vCenter. So instead of going to home and going to vSphere replication, which is what I did right now, I prefer to work with vCenter inventory lists. And then I go to the vCenter and it shows me the vCenter. By right clicking on the vCenter, I can actually see all the vSphere replication actions that would be there. So how do I connect to the target site? I can connect to a target site provided in a cloud. I can configure this local site. I can configure the vSphere replication server as well as register the server. Now obviously, as we have already seen, the vSphere replication server is a proxy essentially for the vSphere replication appliance, which runs the management services as well. So this server does not run management services. So when I click on the vCenter server 192.168.0.223, which is the vCenter with the embedded platform services controller that's running out at my branch site, which is site 3.local, I go to the summary tab, and this is what I see. I see some information about vSphere replication as well. So when I click on the twisty and expand this, I see that this site, this branch site, is already connected. This is the connected symbol to one target site. When I expand that, I see that that site is the 220 server. So that is the home office or headquarters. So this branch replication services are actually connected to the headquarters replication services. So in this case, there is a management server, vSphere replication appliance running the management services connected to my headquarters replication server, which is also running management services, and that is connected. When I look at the outgoing replications, I see that I am replicating some virtual machine from this branch site over to headquarters. By clicking on this, scrolling down, I see that there is a total of one VM, which obviously we saw in summary, but there's more information that is available there, and that there are no incoming replications. So this is an overall view of the branch office. Now, when I click on the monitor tab, I see there's a new tab that is set up called vSphere Replication, which is implemented when the plugin is installed in the vSphere web client after the replication appliance is actually installed. So just a brief overview of what this again looks like at the branch level is that there are outgoing replications. The virtual machine that is being replicated is this virtual machine. It is being replicated to this target 220, which as we all know by now is headquarters, and it is utilizing the vSphere replication appliances embedded proxy. If I look at some of these tabs here, I can reconfigure the replication for this virtual machine, and we will not do it right now because right now we're just looking at an overview of the user interface. We can pause any ongoing replications. We can stop the replications permanently. We can sync now. So if I click on this button, it'll sync whatever changes there are over to headquarters. I can move this replication to another vSphere replication server. So right now, this virtual machine or this replication job is being served by the vSphere replication appliance. Now on this site, I also have a replication server, which is basically another appliance but does not run the management interface. So I can, when I set up replication, distribute the load across multiple replication servers. Obviously useful when one vCenter controls multiple hosts. You can then run a vSphere replication server on every host because you can only have one vSphere replication appliance connected to a vCenter, but you can have multiple replication servers on each host so that the transfer of data is directly from the host to the local proxy replication server and out over the network, instead of always going through the vSphere replication appliance, which is running the management services and also has the internal proxy in it. And the vSphere data protection appliance also works the same way. You can there's an internal proxy, but then to provide efficiencies, you can actually create external proxies. So to reduce the length of the path, it is always good to then install vSphere replication servers, which are basically the appliances without the management service, on every host that is managed by this vCenter for which you are going to provide replication. So having looked at the outgoing replications, let's look at the incoming replications. There's nothing set up here. I'll just click on reports to give you an idea of what these reports could be, to float it out a little bit there. So there's a lot of information that is then available, which obviously we will look at later when we look at the reports in some more detail. Cloud recovery settings. This is when we actually have replication to a cloud. We have not set anything up in terms of a cloud being a target, but vCloud Air, for example, could be a target if you have the subscription for disaster recovery on vCloud Air. So we've looked at the summary tab, and we have information about the replication setup on this vCenter server. We looked at the monitor tab, from where you can check outgoing replications, incoming replications reports, and the cloud recovery settings. And then you have the manage tab, for which also there is a vSphere replication tab, which tells you about the target sites and the replication servers. Let's take a look at this. So the about is obviously that this is version 6.1.1. This is very, very new. The address of this or the replication appliance is 71. The target sites We've seen that before. The vCenter is 220, which is headquarters vCenter, and it is talking to the replication manager, which is at address 70. So replication manager at address 70 at headquarters is talking to replication manager 71 at this branch site, which is running vCenter 223. Now let's look at replication servers. You see this, there are two of them here. So let me move this across, and you can see that the first one is the vSphere replication appliance at site 3, which is what I named this when I installed this replication appliance, which is the first step that one has to do. It has an embedded replication server, so it's running management services as well as replication services. And this is the one that we already saw has this IP address of 71. But in order to distribute the load, once that is done, I can then install additional replication servers only which do not run the management service for replication. So I installed a second vSphere replication server, and later on in this course we will see how we do that. And I gave it another name, which is 72. So that now when I set up a new replication job, what happens is that I have the option of actually selecting either this replication server that runs in the replication appliance or this replication server that runs independently as the proxy that will be used to do the replication with. Quick look at these icons up here. This obviously is to deploy a new vSphere replication server for an OVF template. It's just a simple deployment from an OVF template, so it shows up in many different places. Here, this is one of them. This is important. We'll look at that later on. When you actually install a new vSphere replication server, it has to be registered as a replication server. We'll do that later, and this is obviously just to do a refresh. So we have seen what the branch office looks like. The branch office knows that it is talking to a vCenter server at site 220 and is talking to a vSphere replication appliance running management services at address 70, and that it is actually connected. So let us now go over to headquarters. Let's go over to this vCenter server and explore this vSphere replication appliance address of 70. I already have that running up here, so I click on this tab, and as you can see, for the vCenter server 220, I actually am running it in linked mode with 221. We won't worry about that too much. I will actually click on this, just like we did at the branch site, and now we are at headquarters. Right? So we have 220 headquarters. And in the summary, you see there is a section on vSphere replication. So the target site 1, that's our branch office. There is no outgoing replication obviously from this end, but there is an incoming replication which we saw at the branch site, because at the branch site it showed up as an outgoing replication. Let's now look at monitor. So at the branch site we had seen an outgoing replication for this virtual machine. Here we have an incoming replication for this virtual machine, and obviously the source of this is 223, which is the vCenter for the branch. Reports and cloud recovery settings are the same. Because there is incoming replication here, here's some details that are now available on this side. So the last sync was at this time. It took about 4 seconds. We will go into more detail about the recovery point objectives and the quiescing and compression and so on. Target site, this is where it's actually coming from, 223, and this is the virtual machine. So clicking on this tab, the point time, it gives us, I have enabled the option of point-in-time recovery. We can set that up during setting up a new replication job. And what we see in point of time is that the option I've set is that it is enabled, so it keeps basically 3 instances per day for the last 5 days, which means I then have the ability to, when I do a recovery, or if I have to do a recovery, I can select any one of these when I do a recovery, and we will see that when we actually go through a recovery process. And I have not run recovery yet because we are going to do it later in this course. So this is the user interface for vSphere replication. In my view, the easiest way of accessing the information about vSphere replication is to go into the vCenter server, click on that. The summary will show you the summary tab of vSphere replication. The monitor and the replication tab will show you all the information you need here. And the manage will show you the target site and the replication servers, which, as you can see, is the replication server running here is 70, and it is obviously connected to the other side, which is our branch 223, and as we saw earlier, its address for the vSphere replication appliance was 71, and it is actually connected. So this is the conclusion of our brief look at the infrastructure and the overall setup for a replication that I have in place. I will go through obviously the processes of installing completely new appliances and servers, but we will do that in a different video. In the next video, we will look at the installation and configuration of the vSphere replication server, which is basically the vSphere replication appliance but without the management service. I look forward to seeing you on the next video.